There is a photograph that Elvis Presley's family refused to show the world for over 40 years. Not a concert photo, not a candid backstage moment. Something far more painful than that. Something that, the moment you understand what it means, will change the way you see the king of rock and roll forever. This is not a story about fame. This is a story about a mother, a son, a grief so deep it almost broke a man who had everything, and a secret that his own family buried in silence because some truths, they believed, were simply too heavy for the world to carry. Tupelo, Mississippi, 1935. You have to close your eyes and feel it. A two-room shotgun shack on Old Saltillo Road. No running water. A family so poor that the word struggling doesn't even begin to cover it. Vernon Presley, a man trying his hardest and falling short. And Gladys Presley, a woman who loved with a ferocity that most people in this world never get to experience from another human being. On January 8th, 1935, Gladys went into labor. She was carrying twins. The first boy came into the world and he was silent. His name was Jesse Garin Presley. He never drew a single breath. And then, 35 minutes later, the second twin arrived. Screaming, fighting, alive. Elvis Aaron Presley. From the very first moment of his life, Elvis entered this world carrying a ghost beside him. And Gladys, this fierce, small, devoted woman, spent the rest of her life loving Elvis with the love of two sons, as if somehow, through him, she could hold on to both of them. She never fully let go of Jesse, and Elvis never fully let go of that fact. People who knew the family in those early years in Tupelo remembered something that most Elvis biographies gloss over quickly. Gladys used to walk Elvis to Jesse's grave, the small unmarked plot in Priceville Cemetery. She would hold her living son's hand and talk to her dead one. Elvis, barely old enough to understand death, would stand there in the Mississippi heat and listen to his mother speak to someone he never knew, but somehow always felt. He grew up understanding, at a cellular level, that his very existence came with a cost. By the mid-1950s, the world was beginning to shake. A young truck driver from Memphis walked into Sun's studio, paid $4 to record a song for his mother's birthday, and accidentally started a revolution. Sam Phillips heard something in Elvis's voice that he'd been searching for. A white boy who could feel the music the way the black artists he recorded could feel it. Raw, honest, like it was being pulled out of him rather than performed. The records came, the television appearances, the screaming crowds, Ed Sullivan, the Army, Hollywood, Vegas, and through all of it, every single step, there was Gladys. Elvis bought her a house, Graceland. He bought her clothes and jewelry and anything she ever looked at twice. He called her every single day he was away. People on his team noticed it. Some found it touching. Some quietly found it unusual. A grown man, one of the most famous people on the planet, who still called his mother Satnin, his private nickname for her, and who seemed in some fundamental way incomplete without her. What the public didn't fully understand, what the family worked very hard to keep quiet, was how much Gladys was declining. She had started drinking. Quietly at first, then less quietly. She was taking prescription pills. She was gaining weight rapidly. She was, by many accounts, slowly falling apart in the shadow of her son's blinding fame. The woman who had been his anchor was herself coming untethered. And Elvis knew. He knew, and he was helpless. Here is where the secret begins. In the summer of 1958, Elvis was preparing to ship out to Germany with the U.S. Army. He was 23 years old. He did not want to go, not because he feared the service, but because he was terrified of leaving Gladys. On August 8th, 1958, Gladys Presley was admitted to Methodist Hospital in Memphis. Her heart was failing. Elvis was on base in Fort Hood, Texas, and the moment he got word, he went into a kind of quiet, controlled panic that the people around him had never seen before. He got emergency leave. He rushed home. What happened inside Graceland during those final days? That is what the family kept hidden. Vernon Presley spoke about it only once, briefly, in a private conversation years later. Priscilla alluded to it in careful, measured sentences. The people who were actually inside that house during those days were instructed, gently but firmly, not to talk about what they saw. Because what they saw was Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, the man who made millions of women faint, the most famous entertainer in America, completely, utterly broken. He did not sleep. He sat by his mother's bed and held her hand and talked to her for hours. He sang to her, softly, old gospel songs she had taught him in the Assembly of God church they attended back in Tupelo when they had nothing. He sang to her the way she had sung to him when he was small and frightened and the world was too big. On August 14th, 1958, Gladys Love Presley died of a heart attack. She was 46 years old. And Elvis, this is the part the family protected for decades, Elvis collapsed. Not figuratively, literally. He fell to the floor of her bedroom and he wept in a way that frightened the people who witnessed it. He kept saying the same thing over and over again. The exact words were kept private for years, passed only in whispers between people who had been there. But the core of it, the heartbreak of it, was this. He told her he was sorry. Sorry for being famous, for being away, for the life that had taken him from her. The funeral was a spectacle that Elvis never wanted. Thousands of fans lined the streets of Memphis. The press was everywhere. The whole world was watching. And Elvis, red-eyed and barely standing, had to perform his grief in public when every part of him wanted to fall apart in private. There is a photograph from that day. It became one of the most circulated images in Elvis Presley history. He is leaning over his mother's casket, his face pressed close to hers, his eyes shut. The pain on his face is so raw, so unguarded, that it almost doesn't look like him. The king is gone. There is just a boy saying goodbye to his mother. Vernon later said that Elvis never fully came back from that day. The people closest to him, the Memphis Mafia, Priscilla, the musicians he worked with, they all noticed it. Something behind his eyes went quiet after August 1958 and never came all the way back on. He threw himself into work. Germany, movies, more movies, Vegas. He ate and drank and medicated the grief that he never properly processed because the world never gave him the space to process it. Every moment he wasn't performing, he was expected to be Elvis. And Elvis, the character, the icon, did not get to grieve. But here is the detail that the family held closest. The truth that only came out decades later through private letters and the careful memories of those who loved him. Elvis kept a private photograph of Jesse Garon's grave in his personal belongings for his entire life. Not on display, tucked away, something only he knew about. He had never stopped carrying his twin brother. And when Gladys died, in some private architecture of his heart, he felt that the three of them, him, his mother, and the ghost of Jesse, were somehow separated in a way that could not be undone in this lifetime. He told a close friend once, late at night, in the strange floating world of post-performance Vegas, that he believed he had been the wrong twin, that Jesse would have been better, stronger, less likely to let their mother down. That is the secret the family kept. Not a scandal, not a crime, something quieter and more devastating than either of those things. The most famous man in America spent his entire life believing he was not enough. Elvis Presley died on August 16th, 1977. It was 19 years and 2 days after his mother. Some people find that coincidence eerie. Some people find it unbearably poetic. Because if you believe, as Gladys did, that the people we love are never fully gone, then maybe the timing means something. Maybe after 19 years of carrying that grief through the noise and the lights and the loneliness, he finally got to put it down. Graceland still stands on Elvis Presley Boulevard in Memphis, Tennessee. Every year, hundreds of thousands of people walk through those rooms: the Jungle Room, the Trophy Hall, the Meditation Garden where Elvis and Gladys and Vernon are buried side by side. Most of them come for the king, but now and then, someone stands at Gladys's grave a little longer than the others. They read her name. They do the math on her age. 46 years old, barely middle-aged by today's standards, and they feel something shift inside them, because the real story of Elvis Presley was never about the music, as extraordinary as it was. It was never about the movies or the jumpsuits or the mansion. It was about a boy from a two-room shack in Mississippi who loved his mother more than he loved anything the world gave him, who carried a dead twin brother in his heart from the moment he was born, who became the biggest star on the planet, and still, in the dark, felt like he was missing something that no amount of fame could replace. The family kept this secret because they wanted to protect him, even after he was gone, because in their eyes, he had already given the world everything. The grief was his, the love was his, the loss was his. And now, finally, it belongs to all of us. Rest easy, Elvis. You were always enough.